Hey spooky crew, welcome back. And if you're wondering if the new movie Trap is going to be living up to the hype, stay tuned and you're about to find out. Trap's official release date is this Friday, August 2nd, and is produced by the well-known M. Night Shyamalan. It was also directed by him. So if you're not familiar with his work, he has done well-known movies that I'm sure you've heard of, like The Sixth Sense, you know, the whole I see dead people movie. Everyone pretty much has seen or heard that line at one point or another. And he's also done some really other great films. Great director as far as I'm concerned, because a lot of his movies I do enjoy. Another great one to note is Split, which is definitely one of James McAvoy's best performances, I would say. He does a slew of different characters in that movie, which is just incredible. So if you haven't seen those, definitely check those out. But those are some of the things that he is known for. So for me, that name is just synonymous with great movies because there's been so many that I've seen that he has produced that are just top notch. So this one's actually about a serial killer named Cooper, aka the Butcher, played by Josh Hartnett, and he is taking his teen daughter named Riley, who is played by Ariel Donahue, to a concert of a artist named Lady Raven, who is actually played by M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, Salika Shyamalan, which I apologize if I am totally butchering those, pun intended, boom boom psh. And he doesn't realize at the moment, but it is actually a sting operation set up to try to trap him and catch him basically at this particular concert because they received some sort of tip that told them that he was going to be there. And then it's kind of about the anxiety and thrills that ensue thereafter with him trying to evade capture. So what were my initial thoughts seeing the trailer? So one thing that I definitely do is a trailer test, which I will tell you guys how it did on that in just a moment. For me, when I saw this trailer, I was like, wow, this is going to be interesting because it's such a different concept. Putting together two juxtaposed things like a pop star's concert and the hunting of a serial killer, those are two things that I really wouldn't ever see coming in a movie. So I definitely was intrigued by that concept to begin with because there's so many movies out there that are nowadays being remade and, or predictable, that seeing something fresh that's different is always exciting to me. But immediately after watching the trailer, I just thought, okay, so what's going to happen? Is he going to get caught? Is he going to get out of it somehow? Is there going to be, chaos that ensues? Like, what is going to happen after this whole situation plays out? So I really like that aspect of it, and you will find out more about the answers I got to some of those questions shortly. But first, let's talk about how the actors did. So Ariel Donahue, I hadn't really seen her in any major movies before this, and I will say she is definitely an actress to look out for. I thought that she did such a wonderful job playing a natural teenager, which I know that seems kind of dumb. You would think, okay, it's a teenager playing a teenager, not a huge stretch, right? Being so young and probably way inexperienced compared to some of her counterparts, I think that her performance being so natural as a teenager in this setting is definitely something to note because that's difficult. She is fluid with her performance throughout the whole thing, and the chemistry between her and Josh Hartnett I thought was pretty great. I know I've seen some reviews where people felt the interactions were strange or odd, but I think there's a rhyme and reason to that, which brings me to Josh Hartnett's performance in this. So I think he did an excellent job playing this, trying to be cool, calm, and collected and play chameleon amongst all these police and everyone else who I'm sure he feels are onto him, and trying to add all those layers to a character I have to imagine is pretty difficult. Just to pretend to be someone else in and of itself is difficult, but then to add, okay, not only are you someone entirely different from yourself, but you're also playing them as panicked, you're also playing them as a father trying to keep calm and pretend for their kid, and at the same time trying not to get caught. It's just all these things, layered on top of each other, and I think that he does a beautiful job of balancing those things. Not only that, but he definitely did convey the terrifying factor of a serial killer, sociopath type of person. And for me, the reason that some of those interactions between him and other people, including his daughter, are strange or a bit strained is because they're intended to be. This is supposed to be someone who is not like us, who is pretending almost to have these emotions versus actually having them. So when you think about it that way, it makes a lot more sense why someone would behave strangely to us, or why it would fall into that odd pattern of behavior, is because it should. So, or at least we want it to. So for that reason, I definitely think he did great at this. I thought his performance was flawless in my opinion. And the issues I had with the movie definitely had nothing to do with the actors' performances, and I will get to that. But just in case you're wondering where you've seen Josh Hartnett, if you're not that familiar with his work, he has done movies like The Faculty with Elijah Wood, and that was a classic when I was growing up. It definitely came on cable all the time, and great movie. It's kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but in a high school. He's in that one, also in 30 Days of Night, where there's some gnarly vampires, set in, I believe it's Alaska, where, you know, there's nighttime for a while there. And then there's also Lucky Number 11, which I know him from. I think he's also in Black Hawk Down. So there's just a lot of different movies that he's been in that I'm sure you've seen him in, and also I believe Pearl Harbor. So yeah, he's been in a couple of different movies, and he just hasn't really done a whole lot of films recently. So that may be more of why you're not as familiar with his face if you aren't, but either way, definitely worth checking out some of the stuff that he's done in his filmography. You can find that on IMDb by searching his name, or by Googling it. The IMDb usually pops up pretty quickly. So as I mentioned, his performance is just that perfect combination of creepy, uncomfortable, squirmy, and anxious, all rolled into one. And that is part of what's so great about characters like this. You don't need CGI, you don't need any kind of prosthetics, you don't need any gnarly jump scares, because the simple fact that he is portraying what we all know exists in real life, which is serial killers that live amongst us in plain sight, is terrifying to me in and of itself. So I think that's what's great about this movie. Didn't do anything over the top or crazy. It just went with what we know could be true to real life. So for visual effects and cinematography, the fact that it's set, like I said, in such a strange setting where it's a pop star's concert, I think is kind of brilliant, because there's chaos, there's all kinds of stuff going on, there's so many moving parts, and it keeps you guessing on whether or not he's going to figure out a way to get out of there, or if he's going to get caught. So that part I really liked. It's basically a buildup of anxiety set to a pop album, which is interesting and different. So I appreciated that aspect of it. And speaking of that, it was actually pretty cool that the actress who plays the main pop star, Lady Raven, is M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, Salika. And she actually has a beautiful voice. From what I've read online, she did at least one of the songs. I'm not sure if she did all of them, but she at least did one of them. And from what I can tell, I mean, she could definitely have a career in either one, singing or acting, but I definitely would invest in a song or two of hers, because she has a beautiful voice. So that was pretty cool. So I think as far as underlying themes, one of the things that kind of keeps popping up, or kept popping up for me in my mind while watching this movie, is the reminder that killers and murderers and people who are capable of the most atrocious things don't necessarily look or act like they are. Basically, anyone could be capable of that at any point, and that is a scary, horrifying thought to have. So it's kind of along that line of, you never really know anyone 100%, and it just kind of keeps replanting that seed of, you may think you know people, but you don't. And that is something that I think is always scary. I think just as a human being, knowing that people have such a wide range of things they're capable of is always scary. So that is definitely something that resonated to me with this movie. I always do a couple of different tests in my movie reviews, and one is the trailer test. And I basically just gauge whether or not I feel like when I watch the trailer versus watch the movie, do I feel like the trailer oversold it or gave too much away? In this one, I definitely think it passed the trailer test. I think that although there are some moments that are given away in the trailer, which is true pretty much of any trailer, because they have to, right? They have to lure you to want to see the movie. This one, they couldn't really give you enough to guess what happens ultimately in the end. And that's always good. I like when a movie keeps me guessing, because I don't know what's going to happen. it's almost a little disappointing when I predict what's going to happen and it instantly happens and there's no surprise or twist. So for this one, because you already know who the killer is and you already know that they're hunting him, there's not really a way to necessarily give that away because it's already part of the premise, right? So the bottom line, the question is if he's going to get caught or not and how. And those things can't be answered in the trailer, so for that reason it definitely passed. Another test that I like to do is the husband sleep test. So my husband definitely falls asleep if he's not that intrigued with the movie, and in this one it definitely passed. He stayed awake the whole time. However, I will say, I'm going to add a little caveat to that. It did not pass the husband annoyed test. And the reason I say that is because toward the end it does drag a bit, and for that reason my husband just kind of wanted it to get to the point, which brings me to one of the things that I do also, which is a story versus scary, usually, because I usually watch scary movies, but this was more of a thriller, so I would say story versus thriller ratio or balance. So this one I think definitely went more toward the story than the thriller, and that's really because of the ending. I mean, it's the ending, so how thrilling can it be, right? But a lot of these movies, I think, because you expect a lot from an ending, especially if there's a lot of buildup. So to me, for that reason, this one just kind of fell short on that aspect, because I would say about the last fourth, they would have benefited from maybe cutting some of the dialogue shorter, and also maybe, I don't know, adding some form of thrill to it that just wasn't there. Yeah, I just feel like they definitely could have picked up the pace toward the end versus dragging it way down, which just felt like it brought down the whole pace of the entire movie. So final thoughts and overall rating for this movie. I give it a 7 out of 10 pumpkins. And the reason that I think it was good is because the high points for me were overall concept, it being, like I said, a fresh idea, and it not being something that was entirely predictable, where I wanted to figure out exactly what was going to happen with the chase and where it was going to end up. So that was pretty good. And then also the performances I thought were top notch as far as from the lead actors. I don't think they could have done any better in their roles. And I also really appreciated that they ended this movie on a funny note. And if you watch it, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And it is a scene that they add toward the end, and it's actually after the credits start rolling. So don't leave the theater immediately if you're watching this movie, because you will miss it. But it's pretty hilarious, and it just kind of ended it on a great note. So I really like that part of it. The low points for me, I would say, are the drag toward the end, that I feel like they could have cut some time either on the concert portion or somewhere in the end, including making some of the slower dialogue, like I said, more to the point and faster, like cut to the chase, in other words. And maybe even adding a more interesting twist toward the end, because I don't think that's ever a bad idea. But would I rewatch, or would I buy this movie when it comes out on home release? So I would definitely rewatch it. I don't know that I would buy it though. So the thing with these types of movies that are kind of a build up and a what's going to happen is after you see what happens, it's kind of hard to justify rewatching the entire movie when you know how it ends. Still a great movie though. Do you like watching any of the M. Night Shyamalan movies? If so, which one is your favorite? Do you plan on watching this one in theaters? Let me know in the comments below, and if you liked this video, give it a big like and subscribe to see my next video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.